Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Nigeria's president makes his first public statement about the weeks of protests against police brutality in the country. Muhammadu Buhari says he regrets the loss of life and calls on young people to stand down. Also, the mayor of the Ivorian town of Dabu says that at least 6 people have been killed in pre-electoral violence this week. A curfew's been brought in amidst rising tensions ahead of the high-stakes October 31st presidential poll. And Tanzania is a week away from its elections. The opposition's going up against incumbent John Magufuli and is worried that it won't be a fair fight. We look ahead to what's at stake. But first, Nigeria's president addressed the nation on Thursday evening, making his first public statements about 2 weeks of violent protests against police brutality in the country. A day after witnesses say that at least 12 protesters were killed by soldiers opening fire on crowds in Lagos, Muhammadu Buhari called for an end to the unrest and for young people to work with the government to find solutions. The marches have attracted global support. Buhari acknowledged the killings and appealed to foreign observers of how he's handling the tense situation.
I am indeed deeply pained that innocent lives have been lost. These tragedies are uncalled for and unnecessary. Certainly, there is no way whatsoever to connect these bad acts to legitimate expression of grievance of the youth of our country. Our neighbors in particular, and members of the international community, many of whom have expressed concern about the ongoing development in Nigeria, will thank you and urge you all to seek to know all the facts available.
Well, Samuel Olukoya tells us more about how, with so much going on at home, Buhari chose to worry about the reaction from the international community.
Well, the president is worried about the international community for some reasons, especially Western countries, the US and Western Europe. First, Nigeria is not at peace. There's war with Boko Haram, and it relies on these Western countries for arms. And in the past, these Western countries have actually denied Nigeria arms on grounds of human rights violations. And I assume authorities are a bit concerned that this could happen again, given the issue of human rights violations that have been tied to this protest. Also, there's the issue of trade. Nigeria has a strong trade with some of these countries, so it is quite concerned, and that is why it is trying to present its opinion to this Western or its position to these Western countries that what they read on social media is not exactly how it is in Nigeria.
Well, in his speech, we also heard him try to reassure young people that their voices are being heard. How far do you think that will go?
Yeah, this, immediately the president finished speaking, there are a lot of things going on the social media. And most of these things point to the fact that the youth do not exactly feel their voices are being heard. Many say their voices are being heard. The president should have made reference to the incident on Tuesday where soldiers fired on protesters. If you read that speech, the president did not make any reference to that incident. The president did not say anybody who took part in rights violations, in extrajudicial killings, which groups like Amnesty International say as many as 53 people have died. That is excluding yesterday and today. So these are not there. So Nigerians would say that the president has not really gone far enough. The speech, as far as many Nigerians, especially the youths, are concerned, it does not contain anything new. It has taken Nigeria back to where it was before this protest started. So I think in the coming days, the youth will have to decide how they want to go forward, whether to accept things the way they are or to go back and plot fresh strategies. It has been a very costly thing for this youth. So many lives have been lost, and at the end of the day, there's actually nothing to show for the losses and the deaths we've seen.
Samuel Okoye there for us in Lagos. Now, the mayor of the Ivorian town of Dabu has said that at least 6 people have been killed in pre-electoral violence this week alone. A curfew's been brought in amidst rising tensions ahead of the high-stakes October 31st presidential election. Sam Bradpiece has more.
Things are heating up here in Ivory Coast ahead of the presidential election. At least 10 people were killed in the town of Dabu. The mayor of Dabu told me that the town had fallen into a state of terrible psychosis with different communities fearing communal violence from one another. He said people had been attacked with knives, machetes, hunting rifles, and he even said there was a militia on the loose with Kalashnikovs. Calm has since been restored to Dabu as of Wednesday evening. But all of this is indeed worrying, and it follows a spate of violence over the weekend and earlier on in the week in Bongouanou and Bonua, where a number of people were killed. In Bongouanou, the house of opposition candidate Pascal Affi-Guesson was actually burnt to the ground. It's worth remembering that the opposition have called for a boycott of the electoral process here in Ivory Coast. They're angry that President Ouattara is standing for a 3rd term in office. Pascal Affi-Guesson actually told France 24 earlier in the week that if Ouattara won the election, he would not recognise the result. Now, all of this, again, is concerning. It's worth remembering that Ivory Coast hasn't had a peaceful transfer of power since 1995. And the way things are going, it really looks like 2020, well, there's no reason to think that 2020, October 31st, would be any different.
Tanzania's a week away from its elections. The opposition's going up against incumbent John Magufuli and is worried that it might not be a fair fight. Now, he's been accused of growing increasingly authoritarian since he took office in 2015. His rivals say that their campaigning has deliberately been stifled by the government. Regional correspondent Mukelwa Shachwayu tells us more.
President John Magufuli is widely expected to win the upcoming October 28th elections. However, this campaign period has been marred by violence, intimidation, and the suppression of the media. Rights groups accuse Magufuli's government of using various laws to hamper dissent.
We have seen the opposition candidates being disqualified from the election nominations arbitrarily without good explanation. 2, we have seen restrictions of movement against the opposition candidates. These actions have generated tension in Tanzania, and the response of the state agencies, especially the security forces, has been to clamp down on freedom of movement, which has made it difficult and therefore very tense.
Political analysts believe that Magufuli feels threatened. His ruling CCM party has been in power for more than 40 years. However, the opposition's popularity has grown steadily since the introduction of a multi-party system 25 years ago. Magufuli's campaign has enjoyed a wider reach in the country. He has pledged to continue to fight corruption, and this is a call that's very popular amongst his strong rural support base. However, there's growing discontent amongst young people, especially those living in coastal areas. Analysts warn that we may see more violence, especially as there's already a sense amongst opposition supporters that these elections may not be free and fair.
Now, the United Nations High Commission for Refugees plans on repatriating nearly 11,000 Burundians from Rwanda by the end of the year, at a rate of around 500 a week. Many who fled under late leader Pierre Nkurunziza fear that even though he's been succeeded by President Evariste Ndayishimiye, it's still not safe to go back. Our team reports.
These 500 refugees from Mahama camp in Rwanda are on their way back to Burundi. They fled their home country after political violence erupted in 2015.
We're happy to return to our native country. Our families, friends, and neighbors tell us that peace is back.
This is the 6th repatriation since Burundian President Evariste Ndayishimiye came to power 4 months ago. But relations between the two countries are still tense despite Kigali's efforts to normalize them. Burundi accuses Rwanda of harboring its opponents.
We can't compare repatriation with diplomatic issues between both countries. Our responsibility is to facilitate the refugees Even Congolese, anyone who are refugees in Rwanda wants to go back, it's our mandate to facilitate him to go back. Since August, we registered more than 10,000 refugees because it's an activity continuing.
The agency supports the repatriation, but refugees are free to choose whether they leave or stay.
Most of them are farmers and surely want to return to their land so that they can resume a normal life in their country of origin. The follow-up we do with the refugees who have returned to Rwanda tends to show that they have arrived in their areas of origin in safety.
The repatriation process has divided the refugee community in Kigali. While some are eager to return home, those who protested against the government in 2015 remain skeptical. A UN body found that despite a change in leadership in Burundi, human rights violations have continued.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us, and do so again if you can. Take care.